Hey there, scientists. Caroline here. Did you know that Americans consume roughly 50 billion hamburgers per year? And that's just one country in the world. What if I told you that some of that beef came from cattle raised on land that used to be part of the Amazon rainforest? Wait, cattle in the rainforest? That might sound surprising. But it's just one powerful example of how human activities in one region can reshape entire ecosystems in another. In today's lesson, we'll continue to explore biodiversity, the diversity of life on Earth. Specifically, we'll look into how humans affect biodiversity, from human population growth to food production and more. Ready, scientists? Let's get started. In 1950, there were about 2.5 billion people on Earth. Today, there are over 8 billion, and that number is still rising. As the human population grows, how does this affect our demand for natural resources? Demand goes up, not just for food, but also for water, energy, and materials. Meeting the needs of all these people requires land, space for farms, roads, factories, and homes. In places like the Amazon rainforest, obtaining more land often means cutting down huge areas of forest. This is called land conversion, when humans take natural habitats, like forests and wetlands, and completely change them to meet human needs. But when we clear forests, we're not just cutting down trees. We're causing habitat loss, the removal of homes for wild animals like jaguars, sloths, toucans, tree frogs, and countless other species. It might be tempting to think, well, can't the animals just move to another part of the forest? But here's the problem. When we clear large areas of forest for farms or roads, the land that's left behind becomes fragmented, broken into small, disconnected patches. Take the jaguar, for example. Jaguars need large territories to hunt. But if the forest is broken up by farms and highways, they can't move safely between patches. Over time, some species can't survive in these smaller patches. Populations decline or disappear completely as habitats continue to shrink. The end result? Habitat loss leads to a drop in biodiversity, fewer species, and weaker ecosystems overall. All right, scientists, let's put all of this together. Why does human population growth lead to a loss in biodiversity? Pause and record your thoughts in your guided notes. Here's how it all connects. Human population growth leads to more resource demand, which inevitably leads to more land conversion. This leads to more habitat loss and less biodiversity overall. Because of this chain reaction, it is estimated that over 300,000 square miles of forests have been lost since 1990. And forests aren't the only habitats disappearing. Wetlands are being drained to make room for new developments. Grasslands are being plowed up to grow crops. Even under the ocean, habitats are at risk. Practices like bottom trawling, a type of large-scale fishing, can destroy coral reefs, which are home to thousands of marine species. This widespread loss of natural spaces makes habitat loss the single largest threat to biodiversity on Earth, whether it's in the rainforests, in wetlands, or beneath the sea. When humans use natural resources, the goal isn't to remove wild habitats. It's to provide food, homes, and modern conveniences to a growing human population. However, all gains come with trade-offs. Habitat loss is just one of many costs to consider as we continue to make decisions about natural resources. Sometimes, instead of changing the land, humans directly collect what's living there. This is called wildlife harvesting, collecting wild plants or animals from nature. Not farms, not gardens, but directly from the forests, rivers, oceans, and other natural habitats where these organisms live. Scientists, what do you think are some common reasons why humans harvest wildlife? Pause and record your thoughts in your guided notes. One of the most common is for food, like fishing, hunting deer and other wild animals, or collecting plants, such as wild berries, nuts, and herbs. Wildlife is also harvested for clothing and building materials. Things like fur, feathers, shells, ivory, or wood have been used for tools, clothing, or art for thousands of years. Wildlife plays a role in medicine as well. In many cultures, plant parts or even animal products are used to treat illnesses. Finally, wildlife harvesting also occurs for recreation or leisure, like fishing or hunting done for fun or as a sport. As you may have noticed, all these reasons provide a variety of benefits to individuals and communities. But how does wildlife harvesting affect the environment, or more specifically, biodiversity? Not all wildlife harvesting impacts biodiversity in the same way. To better understand the impacts, let's look at some examples. The Yanomami people of the Amazon rainforest hunt small animals like monkeys and birds, gather wild fruits, nuts, and medicinal plants, and fish from nearby rivers using traditional methods. Everything they gather is used to help their community survive in their native home. This is an example of subsistence harvesting, which means gathering just enough to meet basic needs, like food, clothing, or medicine. It's usually done on a small scale, often by people living close to nature. Now let's consider a different kind of example: industrial fishing boats. These boats drag massive nets through oceans, catching thousands of fish each trip to sell around the world. This is an example of commercial harvesting, which means collecting large amounts of wildlife to sell for profit, whether in local markets or across international trade routes. All right, scientists, let's consider these two approaches: subsistence harvesting and commercial harvesting. Which method do you think is more sustainable? Yep, subsistence harvesting. But why is it more sustainable? Pause and record your thoughts in your guided notes. Subsistence harvesting is typically more sustainable because it takes only what is needed by the community. Taking smaller amounts allows wild populations to recover naturally, protecting resources for future generations. But to be clear, this doesn't mean that commercial harvesting is automatically bad. Commercial harvesting allows people to access goods that they can't obtain on their own or that can't be found locally. It provides an important service. However, because the main goal of commercial harvesting is to make money, commercial harvesting is more likely to lead to unsustainable practices, like overharvesting. Overharvesting is when too many individuals are removed from a population too quickly, without giving the species time to recover. We've seen these consequences unfold with industrial fishing boats. In the Atlantic Ocean, decades of commercial fishing led to the overharvesting of Atlantic cod, a key predator in the ecosystem. Fishermen caught cod faster than the fish could reproduce, and eventually the population collapsed. But the damage didn't stop there. Without cod to keep them in check, smaller fish and invertebrates multiplied rapidly, throwing the entire food web out of balance. This example tells us something important about harvesting wildlife resources. When wildlife is harvested unsustainably, it can significantly reduce biodiversity over time. The overharvesting of just one species can cause large ripple effects in entire ecosystems, making it harder for all species to survive and recover. That's why it's important for humans to harvest wildlife resources sustainably, ensuring that resources have time to replenish naturally. By balancing our economic and social needs with the environmental costs, humans can continue to enjoy wildlife resources in the future. And with that, we've wrapped up our lesson on humans and biodiversity. We've learned that human population growth leads to increased demand for wildlife resources, such as land, timber, and food. Over time, this leads to increased habitat loss and overharvesting of wildlife resources, which both reduce biodiversity. But understanding the relationship between humans and biodiversity is only the first step. In our next lesson, we'll look into solutions for reducing the impact of these human threats on biodiversity. Until then, I'm Caroline, and remember, this whole planet is one giant living web, and every species, including you, is a part of it. Even small actions can make a difference, so don't underestimate the impact you can have. Stay observant, keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, hey.